30 days. That's all NVIDIA had left. Not to grow, not to innovate, to survive. 30 days before the money ran out. 30 days before payroll stopped. 30 days before the company that would later power the AI revolution quietly disappeared. Inside the company, there was no optimism left. No, we'll figure it out. Only one number mattered: 30. Because every decision now had the same consequence. Live another month, or shut everything down. Years later, Jensen Huang would describe that period with a sentence that became almost like a warning inside the company. We were 30 days from going out of business. That wasn't motivation. That was reality. And at that time, NVIDIA wasn't leading anything. It was surviving its own failures. Its first major product had already missed the market. Its strategy was being questioned. And in Silicon Valley, investors were quietly preparing to move on, because most people believed the story was already over. But what they didn't know was this: the worst moment in NVIDIA's history had already begun, and it would force one decision that could either erase the company forever or change the future of technology itself. Before NVIDIA became a name known for AI, it tried to become something else entirely: a gaming revolution, a graphics breakthrough, a company that would redefine how computers saw the world. But its first major product didn't just fail, it missed the direction of the entire industry. NVIDIA's first graphics chip was called NV1. At the time, the company believed it was building the future of 3D graphics. Everything was designed around one idea: that gaming would evolve in a very specific direction. But while NVIDIA was building that vision, the rest of the industry was moving somewhere else. A quiet but massive change was happening in the background. Microsoft was shaping the future of PC gaming with DirectX, and that shift defined everything. The industry standardized on triangle-based rendering, a direction NVIDIA's NV1 simply wasn't aligned with. This wasn't just a product failure. It was something deeper, because if NVIDIA had misunderstood the direction of the industry once, what guarantee was there they wouldn't do it again? And more importantly, how many mistakes like this could a young company survive? But NV1 wasn't the end of NVIDIA. It was something worse. It was only the beginning of its real survival problem. Because the next decision wasn't about innovation. It was about existence. After NV1 failed, NVIDIA wasn't just facing a product failure. It was facing something far more dangerous: time. Because building graphics chips wasn't just difficult. It was expensive. Every month burned through cash. Every mistake shortened the company's future. And NVIDIA had already made one mistake too many. In Silicon Valley, bad news travels fast. Developers moved on. Investors lost confidence. Partners started asking difficult questions. Inside NVIDIA, the excitement that had once filled the office was replaced by silence. No one knew whether the company would survive long enough to build another chip. To stay alive, NVIDIA needed more than belief. It needed money. Without new funding, there would be no second product, no comeback, just another startup that disappeared before anyone remembered its name. Everything now depended on one opportunity: a meeting with Sega. At the time, Sega was one of the biggest names in gaming. Winning their support could change everything. Losing it could end the company. After difficult negotiations, Sega agreed to invest around $5 million into NVIDIA. To most companies, it would have looked like growth. For NVIDIA, it meant survival. The investment didn't make them successful. It simply bought them something even more valuable: time. But inside NVIDIA, no one celebrated, because everyone understood one brutal truth: money runs out. And if the next product failed, there wouldn't be another rescue. Jensen Huang constantly reminded his team of the reality they were living. Every decision mattered. Every week mattered. Every day mattered. The company was no longer chasing success. It was fighting for another tomorrow. The Sega investment had saved NVIDIA, from immediate collapse. But survival creates a different kind of pressure. Because now, the company had one final chance to prove it belonged in the industry. If the next chip failed, NVIDIA wouldn't get another opportunity. After years of uncertainty, NVIDIA had been given more time. Now, it had to earn it. The company couldn't afford another prediction about the future. It needed something much simpler, a product customers would actually buy. The biggest lesson from NV1 wasn't that the engineers lacked talent. It was that NVIDIA had tried to force the market in the wrong direction. This time, they would do the opposite. Instead of asking the industry to adapt to them, they would build for the industry. It was a complete change in mindset. That decision led to a new graphics chip, RIVA 128. Unlike NV1, RIVA wasn't built to be different. It was built to work. Every design choice reflected one goal: deliver performance, stay compatible, solve real problems. No unnecessary risks. When RIVA 128 finally launched, everything came down to one question. Had NVIDIA learned from its biggest mistake? This time, the answer was yes. The product performed well. Customers bought it. Developers supported it. For the first time, NVIDIA wasn't being talked about as a company that had failed. It was finally being noticed for something it had built. RIVA 128 wasn't perfect. It didn't instantly make NVIDIA an industry giant, but it did something far more important. It kept the company alive. After years of uncertainty, NVIDIA finally had proof that it could compete. The company had survived its darkest chapter, but surviving once doesn't guarantee survival forever. Just as NVIDIA began finding its place in graphics, a completely different idea started forming inside the company, an idea that had almost nothing to do with gaming. At first, it looked like a side project. Years later, it would become the single most important decision in NVIDIA's history. RIVA 128 had done its job. NVIDIA was no longer fighting to survive every single day. But Jensen Huang wasn't interested in building just another graphics company. He wanted something bigger. The problem was, no one else could see it yet. At the time, every GPU had one purpose: render graphics, run games, nothing more. That was the industry's belief. But inside NVIDIA, a small group of engineers started asking a dangerous question. What if a GPU could do more than draw images? What if it could solve problems? Scientific problems, engineering problems, even problems no one had imagined yet. It sounded unrealistic, maybe even unnecessary. But sometimes, the biggest revolutions begin with questions that seem ridiculous. This wasn't the time to experiment. NVIDIA had only recently escaped bankruptcy. One wrong decision could erase everything they had just rebuilt. Most companies would have played it safe, focused on selling more graphics cards, protected what they had. But NVIDIA had learned something from its near-death experience. Playing safe doesn't create the future. It only protects the present. That idea eventually became something called CUDA, a platform that allowed developers to use NVIDIA's GPUs for far more than graphics. Instead of drawing pixels, they could process massive amounts of data at the same time. It was a completely different way of thinking about computing. But there was one problem. Almost nobody cared. To most of the industry, GPUs were still gaming hardware. CUDA looked like an interesting experiment, not the future. Even inside NVIDIA, there were no guarantees, no exploding demand, no billion-dollar market, only a belief that one day the world would need this technology. So while everyone else chased the present, NVIDIA quietly built for the future, year after year, without headlines, without attention, without knowing if it would ever pay off. For years, CUDA looked like one of NVIDIA's biggest risks. But hidden inside universities, research labs, and scientific projects, something unexpected was starting to happen. A small group of people had discovered what these GPUs could really do. And that discovery would change everything. CUDA didn't become successful overnight. In fact, most people never noticed it at all. While the gaming industry focused on faster graphics, Researchers were using NVIDIA GPUs for something completely different. Speed, not for games, for computation. Scientists began testing CUDA on complex calculations. The results surprised everyone. Tasks that once took days could now finish in hours. Problems that overwhelmed traditional processors became manageable with GPUs. It wasn't magic. It was parallel computing, and NVIDIA had spent years quietly perfecting it. The strange part was, almost no one outside research cared. Tech companies ignored it. Competitors underestimated it. The public had never even heard of CUDA. To them, NVIDIA was still just another graphics company. But underneath that image, something much bigger was growing. Every researcher who adopted CUDA learned its tools, built software around it, published papers using it. Year after year, that community grew, slowly, silently, without anyone realizing they were creating something incredibly difficult to replace. By the time others noticed, NVIDIA wasn't just selling hardware anymore. It had built an entire ecosystem. For nearly a decade, that advantage remained hidden. Then, artificial intelligence reached a turning point. Suddenly, the technology NVIDIA had been building in silence became exactly what the world needed. And overnight, everything changed. For years, NVIDIA had been preparing for a future that hadn't arrived. CUDA kept improving. Researchers kept adopting it. But outside those circles, almost nobody noticed. Then, the world changed. Artificial intelligence was no longer just an academic experiment. Deep learning started producing real results. Models became larger. Problems became more complex. And suddenly, every research team faced the same obstacle: computing power. Traditional CPUs simply couldn't keep up. Training advanced AI models demanded something different: massive parallel processing. Exactly what NVIDIA's GPUs had been built for. Almost overnight, researchers realized they didn't need a new type of hardware. It already existed. NVIDIA wasn't rushing to build AI chips. It had unknowingly spent years preparing for this exact moment. CUDA, once dismissed as a niche developer platform, became one of the most valuable software ecosystems in technology. The risk everyone ignored had become NVIDIA's greatest advantage. As AI moved beyond research labs, the demand exploded. Tech companies raced to build smarter products. Startups poured billions into machine learning. Cloud providers expanded their infrastructure, and every road led to the same destination: NVIDIA. Not because it was the only company making GPUs, but because it had built the ecosystem everyone already depended on. Competitors could copy hardware. Building an ecosystem trusted by millions of developers was another challenge entirely. Without a dramatic announcement, without changing its identity, NVIDIA became the foundation of the AI revolution. Every new AI breakthrough created more demand for its hardware. Every new developer using CUDA made the platform even stronger. The advantage kept growing, almost on its own. The company that had once struggled to survive had quietly become one of the most important companies in modern computing. But the biggest transformation was still ahead, because AI wasn't slowing down. It was only getting started, and the world was about to discover just how dependent it had become on one company. As AI entered the mainstream, the demand became impossible to ignore. Every major technology company wanted more computing power, more GPUs, more NVIDIA. For the first time in its history, the company wasn't struggling to find customers. It was struggling to keep up with demand. AI models kept growing. Their ambitions became bigger. But there was one limit almost everyone faced: hardware. No matter how brilliant the software, without enough computing power, progress stopped. And NVIDIA had become the company supplying that power. It wasn't simply selling chips anymore. It was powering an entire generation of innovation. The most remarkable part of the story wasn't NVIDIA's success. It was when that success had truly begun. Not during record profits, not during soaring stock prices, but years earlier, when the company was fighting for survival, when almost everyone believed it would disappear. Those difficult years forced NVIDIA to think differently, to build patiently, to take risks others wouldn't. And eventually, the world caught up. The startup that once had only weeks of runway became one of the most valuable companies on Earth. Not because it got lucky, but because it stayed alive long enough for its biggest bet to finally matter. People often believe great companies are built during their strongest moments. NVIDIA proves the opposite. Its future wasn't created when everything was working. It was created when almost everything had gone wrong, when failure forced better decisions, when survival demanded patience, and when one company chose to build for a future that nobody else could see. Today, artificial intelligence is transforming the world. Behind almost every major breakthrough stands technology NVIDIA began building years before anyone realized its value. The world didn't make NVIDIA successful. The world eventually needed what NVIDIA had already built. Most people think NVIDIA became powerful because of AI. The truth is far more interesting. AI didn't create NVIDIA. It revealed the company that had been preparing for it all along. And sometimes, the companies that change the future are the ones that simply refuse to disappear.